Hey, I'm Joe Grosella, and I just wanted to thank you for listening to the Hey Chaplain podcast.
Welcome to Hey Chaplain. My name is Jared Altick, and I'm a chaplain with the police department. This is a special quarterly update episode, and it's just about as close as we get to breaking news on this show. Typically, most of our episodes are meant to be evergreen. That means the content is not time-sensitive or easily dated. We do not cover breaking news and developing situations. We are primarily talking about more universal truths that you can look back on a year or two or even 10 years later, and it's still as relevant as the day it was first published. But in the update episodes, we read mail from the mailbag and we talk about current things going on. And in this particular episode, we're going to talk about the IACP, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and the resolution that they recently posted on their website about chaplaincy. Now, I am not going to go to the mailbag this time just to keep the episode brief, but I promise that the next quarterly update that I do, I will go to the mailbag and read those emails and the text messages that you send the show. Our special co-host today is Jim Sutterby. He's police chief in Spring Hill, Kansas, and a good friend of mine. Here's Jim Sutterby. Hello, Jim. How are you today?
Good. How are you, Jared?
I'm doing well. It's been a few years since I've had you on the show, although I do get to see you fairly regularly. We still do lunch and that kind of thing. And actually, since you've been on the show last, you've had a change in your career.
Yeah, it's been kind of a whirlwind here the last 7 months. So after spending 34 years in various positions at Overland Park, Kansas PD, got selected as the chief of police in Spring Hill, Kansas. So
congratulations.
Appreciate that. It's been a fantastic move. Really enjoyed the opportunity to lead another organization and use my experience to try to just improve. The previous chief there was really good at moving the department forward, and so now I just get to build on that momentum, and so that's been refreshing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm happy for you, and that's exciting. The ranks of everybody, when we get together for lunch in our small group, everybody's ranks keep going up, and I've been at my job for 20-some years, and I can't get promoted, and so...
Well, your importance continues to
I appreciate that. You're too kind. Yeah.
To be, felt. And I mean that from a perspective of just, in our group, we have a great conversation about faith and how faith interplays with our different professions and
different roles in
law enforcement and how that works and interplays. And so I appreciate those opportunities to get together and speak, and it's encouraging.
Well, I try not to let my patrol officers see me rubbing elbows with all these police chiefs too much.
That's true.
But you also belong to a professional organization, the International Association of Chiefs of Police. Can you tell me, just like 30,000-foot view, what is the IACP?
Yeah, so the IACP is a important body in law enforcement. It's members of different ranks. It's not just chiefs, but sure. A majority of the members are chiefs of police, but they serve several different roles as members of the organization. Some of those are roles are policy making.
Yeah. And
so just giving best practice and guidance to agencies about different policies, especially things that are evolving in law enforcement.
Yeah. How long have you been involved in IACP? Is that a real recent thing, or?
Yeah, for me, basically, since I got promoted to captain, really didn't start to completely understand it until I was a major. Then I started realizing it was more useful to me and impactful to me.
Right.
But yeah, as a young cop, I didn't know who IACP was and probably didn't care who IACP was.
But going from captain, especially then up to major.
But as you get into executive roles, you realize the importance. Yeah, you realize the importance.
Most small agencies, which is to say most police departments are not very big departments.
Correct.
And they do not have the manpower to write complex policies about evolving things that are happening in the world, whether it's technology or new practices or whatever it may be. But the IACP does a lot of that heavy lifting for them and provides policies and standards and things like that, right?
Yeah, and sample policies for agencies like even my size, to where we can use those as model policies to be able to form what fits into policing in our own communities.
Right.
So that's a big part of what they do. Another large part of what they do is they support law enforcement with legislative initiatives. So if there are bills out there that will increase the professionalism of law enforcement, then it's something that they work towards with our congressmen at the federal level. Also some state levels to where we can, push policy forward that's good for the profession and good for the communities that we serve. So that's another big part of what they do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. They're the big dog. They really are. There are other professional organizations and think tanks and that kind of thing. But boy, they're the big one. They've been around for, well, goodness, well over 100 years. They are international and very influential. And
also, they see issues and they use their influence to try to get right in on those issues right away, to try to bring down the temperature, to try to problem solve and to try to make things better.
One of the reasons that you and I are connected, I mean, not just that we played basketball together for years, but also something close to your heart is chaplaincy in law enforcement.
Yes.
And IACP just recently published a resolution on police chaplains. Can you tell me a little bit about that and what that means?
Yeah. So there's a lot of these different sections in the IACP. One of them is the chaplain section, and it's made up of chaplains who get together to discuss issues surrounding chaplaincy and law enforcement. Back about a year ago, we decided that, hey, we needed to do more from this group to try to support law enforcement chaplaincy in departments. And how do we do that? And Bishop Ronald White is the chairperson of this section, and a guy by the name of a chaplain out of Colorado, Kevin Shive. Some people may know him.
Yeah, Rocky Mountain Police and Fire.
Yeah, Police Fire. So he's the co-chair on this, and so we started to, kind of bounce around some ideas about how do we get IACP to create a resolution, again, talking about that influence that IACP has in the industry to say, hey, chaplaincy is important, and trying to say, hey, police chiefs, you should have chaplains programs as part of your overall officer wellness and safety programs. Yeah. They started to come up with the resolution and started to kind of push that through, because it has to go through several different committees for approval process until it gets to the overall committee that oversees the board of IACP, the national board. So
I know you were tracking, because that was a conversation at lunch one time, was you were tracking this resolution's path through different committees. And in fact, I had the impression maybe this may not happen for a while. And so I was really surprised when you told me that this resolution wasn't on the website and that kind of thing.
Well, I think it's divine intervention. I think God had a thing to do with it. Because these types of resolutions do take months to get through, sometimes the different committees that they need to get through. This one skyrocketed through the process.
Wow.
And we were just talking about this at our last committee meeting about how it was amazing that we were able to get this through so quickly, and that and now we have that backing. And I think it just makes police chiefs feel more comfortable having chaplains, because there's always this, even though you can put out the information about, there's no issue with having chaplains in a law enforcement agency, there's still sometimes some stigma about separation of church and state and how all that works. Well,
the politics could scare a chief away, and even a bad experience. If that chief 20 years previously had a bad run-in with a poorly trained chaplain, that could have set him or her down a path for years of like, we don't really want or need chaplains or anything.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the influence that IACP has, how they influence policing, and how the chiefs, that's the go-to organization for chiefs really to look at these different things that are going on in policing. This gives police chiefs confidence that, hey, the IACP knows and understands how important chaplains are to officer safety and wellness, how important they are to communities, and that they believe that chiefs should strongly consider having chaplains as a part of their officer safety and wellness initiatives.
Yeah. I'm going to read the body of the resolution here and get my narrator voice going here. All right, so there's 7 statements here in this resolution. It starts with, whereas law enforcement officers and agency personnel are consistently exposed to high-stress situations, trauma, and crisis events that place them at an increased risk for psychological, emotional, relational, and spiritual strain, and whereas chaplains, when properly trained and integrated, serve as trusted and confidential support providers for both agency personnel and the communities they serve, contributing significantly to officer wellness, morale, and resiliency. And whereas studies and practical experience have shown that holistic wellness initiatives, including spiritual and emotional support, strengthen the effectiveness and health of law enforcement agencies worldwide, and whereas chaplain programs, when guided by best practices and supported institutionally, offer a low-cost and high-impact resource that complements existing wellness, peer support, and mental health strategies within public safety organizations, and resolved that the International Association of Chiefs of Police encourages all law enforcement agencies to develop and maintain healthy, well-trained, and connected chaplain programs as a key component of officer wellness and organizational support. Further resolved that such programs should include appropriate selection, ethical guidance, and continuous training of chaplains to ensure their effectiveness, professionalism, and alignment with agency wellness priorities. Further resolved that the IACP Chaplains section stands ready to support law enforcement agencies globally in the establishment, evaluation, and strengthening of chaplaincy programs as an integral part of holistic officer care. Okay, I want to note that I did that in one take, but Jim, what would ideally you like to see come from this?
Well, I know that currently what we're working towards in our section is to come up with a set of standards for chaplaincy. And that's everything from training to how to select, and working through all those details to help, again, what's best practice? What's the best path forward? What organization can you count on? I mean, you and I are affiliated with ICPC, the International Conference of Police Chaplains. We feel, and I feel strongly that that's a great organization for training chaplains, for connecting chaplains to one another.
But there's lots of regional.
Too,
like Rocky Mountain,
right?
And they've got a very good reputation,
right?
There's
Billy Graham
local groups that are really good,
right?
But then there's also ones that probably have kind of lost their way, or maybe the main person that was driving them is no longer involved. There's little pop-up groups that are like, what, I can get paid for teaching people about chaplaincy? Okay, I'll do it. And that's, they're not really qualified to do it.
No.
And so, having some standards and some direction, I think, will help.
So we feel like this is what they do, and they help establish best practices and standards. And I think also one of the things that we've been talking about is how do we keep these standards and practices relevant to the position of police chaplaincy. So, for instance, when it comes to qualifications, you may not need hours and hours of postgraduate education to be a police chaplain. But what should those standards be? What should an agency be looking at when they're choosing a chaplaincy? Because we have a lot of good chaplains that maybe don't have any formal theological training, but they have a lot of other attributes that feed well into chaplaincy. So
having a master's or a doctorate in theology might create a really good person to be a police chaplain. But sometimes it has nothing to do with what you need to have a good police chaplain. And so there's people who have those degrees that are great, and there's people who have those degrees that are still unqualified, and vice versa. You have people who do not have those degrees that are unqualified and should not be involved, and there's others who don't have those degrees and would be great chaplains.
Correct. So I think this is still a work in progress. The first step was to get the resolution, to get the support of IACP formally. And then now we're getting into the real work of what should those standards be? What should best practices be?
Well, I think it's going to help chaplains. I also think it's going to help the 25-year-old wellness officer or the 30-year-old lieutenant who is suddenly in charge of a group of chaplains that he's never had any interaction with chaplains before. It's like, now I'm in charge of this group. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
And so having a resource like IACP, I think that is going to be hugely beneficial to those officers and those supervisors. So,
yeah, it takes, again, it's like we talked about, kind of takes the voodoo out of chaplaincy, and says, hey, it's okay. This is an integral part of officer safety and wellness.
Yeah.
And that's just one facet of chaplaincy. I mean, we could spend a whole episode talking about, chaplaincy as it stands, but it takes that stigma off of that and just gives the chief that comfortability that this is going on all over the country. ICP supports it. So let me see what I can do to offer this to our community and to our officers. So those are the things that are in progress right now. And I'm excited that the chaplain section has taken this bull by the horn.
Yeah. This is a huge endorsement for professional chaplaincy programs. And that makes a big difference, especially in some particular agencies. And that might be the little bit of influence that may be the tipping point to let a program go forward, or to keep a program alive, or to put the energy into revamping a program. I just think this is good news. Jim, thank you for your work on this. I appreciate it.
Well, I had a very little part in it. I want to give a lot of credit to Kevin Shive and Bishop Ronald White. I mean, those are the chair and the co-chair. And so without their support and without them pushing this, this wouldn't have been a reality either. So really appreciate those men work. And of course, our secretary, Pat Bach, is also super important to our group and does a lot to, again, help these things through the IACP process. So appreciate those people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
I want to thank Jim for coming on the show, especially since he basically, at last minute's notice, was willing to drive all the way to my office to give me a portion of his day. I know he's a busy guy. I really appreciated that. Also, in regard to IACP, I'm going to be going to the IACP's Officer Safety and Wellness Conference to give a presentation on embedding chaplains. This year's conference is in New Orleans, and I would not have been able to go if it weren't for some very generous helpers who wanted to remain mostly anonymous. And so I won't specify who they are exactly on this show, but I want them to know that they have my undying gratitude. And you will benefit by the Hey Chaplain podcast going to New Orleans, because while I'm there, I'm going to be arranging and even recording more content for this show. Please remember that the views expressed here are the personal views of the host and our guest and do not necessarily represent the views of any law enforcement agency or its components. If you like this episode, please share it with a cop or someone who loves a cop. Thank you for listening to Hey Chaplain, and as always, let's pray for peace in our city.